The crimson dawn of Kepler 442c cast long shadows across the research station as Dr. Alina Torres made her morning rounds. The distant moon's thin atmosphere created a perpetual twilight that most humans found unsettling, but Alina had grown to love the ethereal beauty of this place. She pressed her palm against the observation deck's cool metal wall, watching the twin suns rise over the crystalline mountains. "Another beautiful day in paradise," she murmured, though her voice carried a hint of loneliness. 3 years on, this remote outpost had given her plenty of time to perfect her research on alien plant biology, but human contact was limited to the small crew of 12 specialists. The emergency klaxon shattered the morning silence. Alina's heart raced as she ran toward the command center, her long dark hair streaming behind her. The station's AI was broadcasting coordinates to what appeared to be a crash site, just 3 kilometers from their position. "Alina, thank God you're here," called Jackson Reed, the station's head of security. His broad shoulders filled the doorway. As he turned to face her, concern etched across his weathered features. Despite their professional relationship, Alina couldn't help but notice how his green eyes always seemed to find hers in moments like these. "What do we have, Jocks?" she asked, forcing herself to focus on the emergency rather than the way his presence always made her pulse quicken. "Small craft, definitely not human origin. It came in hot about 20 minutes ago. Scanner shows 1 life sign, but it's weak." Jackson grabbed 2 emergency packs from the supply locker. "I need someone with xenobiology training to come with me. The medical team is handling a situation in the lab." Alina nodded without hesitation. "Let me grab my field kit." The rover kicked up clouds of crystalline dust as they approached the crash site. The alien vessel was unlike anything Alina had seen before. Its organic curves suggested it had been grown rather than built, and strange symbols pulsed weakly along its hull. "Life sign is definitely inside," Jackson said, checking his scanner. "But Alina, ... it's not adult-sized." Her breath caught as they pried open the damaged hatch. Inside, wrapped in what appeared to be bioluminescent fabric, was a child. The being couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old by human standards. With pale, silvery skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, most striking were the intricate markings that covered her arms and face. They looked like living tattoos, shifting and changing color as Alina watched. "Oh my God," Alina whispered, kneeling beside the unconscious child. "Jocks, she's hurt badly." Dark blue fluid, presumably blood, stained the child's clothing. But even as Alina examined the wounds, she noticed something impossible happening. The deeper cuts were closing themselves, new skin growing over the injuries at a pace that defied biology. "Did you see that?" Jackson's voice was barely a whisper. Alina nodded, gently lifting the child in her arms. The being was surprisingly light, and her skin felt warm despite the coolness of space. "We need to get her back to the station immediately." As they secured the child in the rover, her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. They were the most beautiful shade of violet Alina had ever seen, filled with intelligence and something else, a deep, ancient sadness that no child should carry. "It's okay, little one," Alina said softly. "You're safe now." The child's lips moved, but no sound came out. Instead, Alina felt a strange sensation in her mind, like whispered words in a language she didn't understand but somehow comprehended. "Thank you." Back at the station, Alina worked tirelessly to stabilize their unexpected patient. The child's physiology was fascinating. Her cellular structure seemed to be constantly adapting, healing damage and even improving upon the original design. As the evening approached, the child finally opened her eyes fully. "Lo," Alina said gently, sitting beside the medical bed. "I'm Alina. This is Jackson. We're here to help you." The child studied them both with those incredible violet eyes. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "My name is Nova," she said in perfect, unaccented English. Alina and Jackson exchanged surprised glances. "How do you know our language?" Jackson asked. Nova touched her temple. "Where?" The markings seemed to pulse brighter. "I learned quickly. It's part of who I am." Over the next few hours, they learned that Nova remembered little of her journey or her origins. She spoke of running, of being afraid, but the details remained frustratingly vague. What was clear was that she was alone, frightened, far from home. As Alina tucked Nova into a proper bed that night, the child grabbed her hand. "Will you stay with me? I have bad dreams sometimes." Elena's heart melted. "Of course, sweetie." "Yes." Nova drifted off to sleep. Alina found herself wondering about this mysterious child who had literally fallen from the sky. Something about Nova felt important, significant in ways Alina couldn't yet understand. But one thing was certain: she would do whatever it took to protect this extraordinary being. Outside, Jackson stood guard by the window, his eyes scanning the star-filled sky. He couldn't shake the feeling that Nova's arrival was just the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous than any of them realized. 3 weeks had passed since Nova's arrival, and the research station had become something entirely different. The child's presence brought life to the sterile corridors, her laughter echoing through spaces that had known only the hum of machinery. In quiet scientific discussion, Alina watched Nova through the observation window of the hydroponics lab, marveling at how the alien plants seemed to respond to the child's touch. Flowers that had refused to bloom for months now burst with vibrant colors whenever Nova entered the room. "She's remarkable," Jackson said, stepping up beside Alina. His shoulder brushed against hers, sending a familiar warmth through her body. Over the past weeks, their partnership in caring for Nova had drawn them closer together in ways that both thrilled and terrified Alina. "Look at that," Alina whispered, pointing to where Nova was, gently stroking the leaves of a particularly stubborn Andromedan orchid. The plant's bioluminescent petals began to glow, casting rainbow patterns across the child's silvery skin. "I've been thinking," Jackson said quietly, his voice deeper than usual. "About Nova, about this situation. You can't keep her hidden forever. The supply ship arrives next month, and questions will be asked." Lena turned to face him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not sure yet. But I know one thing. That little girl has become family to me. To both of us." His green eyes met hers, and Alina saw her own feelings reflected there. "Alina, I need to tell you something." Before he could continue, Nova's voice called out, "From the lab, Alina, Jackson. Come see what I can do." They rushed inside to find Nova standing in the center of the room, her markings blazing with silver light. As they watched in amazement, every plant in the lab began to respond, leaves rustling without wind, flowers opening in perfect synchronization, vines extending toward Nova as if seeking her touch. "Nova, that's incredible," Alina breathed, kneeling beside the child. "How are you doing this?" "I'm not sure," Nova admitted, her violet eyes wide with wonder. "I just feel connected to everything living. It's like they're all singing to me." Jackson's hand found Elena's shoulder, his touch gentle but possessive. "We need to document this. If Nova has these kinds of abilities, then she's not just any lost child," Alina finished. "She's something special, something powerful." That evening, after Nova had fallen asleep, Lena found herself alone with Jackson in the station's small observation lounge. The twin suns had set, and the moon's night sky blazed with stars and distant nebulae. "You were going to tell me something earlier," Elena said, settling onto the couch beside him. The artificial fireplace cast warm shadows across his rugged features. Jackson was quiet for a long moment, his hands clasped tightly together. "Alina, these past few weeks caring for Nova together, it's shown me something I've been trying to ignore for months." Elena's heart began to race. "What's that?" Turned to face her, his eyes intense in the firelight. "I'm falling in love with you. Hell, I think I already have fallen in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, electric and dangerous. Lena felt her breath catch as Jackson reached out to touch her cheek. "Jocks, I know it's complicated. I know we work together, that this place is too small for messy relationships. But watching you with Nova, seeing the way you care for her, the way you light up when she learns something new," his thumb traced along her jawline. "I can't pretend anymore." Lena leaned into his touch, her professional reservations crumbling. In the face of what she felt, "I've been pretending to," she whispered. "But Jocks, what if this changes everything?" "Maybe everything needs to change," he said softly, leaning closer. Maybe we've been playing it safe for too long. Their lips met in a kiss that was tender at first, then deeper as weeks of suppressed longing finally found expression. Elena's hands tangled in his dark hair as he pulled her closer, the warmth of his body igniting something primal and desperate. Within her, when they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Elena Jackson murmured against her ear, his voice rough with desire. "Are you sure about this?" Instead of answering with words, she kissed him again, more urgently this time. Her hands found the hem of his shirt, fingers tracing the hard muscles. Beneath their moment was interrupted by a soft sound from the doorway. Nova stood there in her nightgown, rubbing sleepy eyes. "I had another bad dream," she said quietly. Elena and Jackson immediately separated. Though Elena noticed how Jackson's hand lingered on her back. "Come here, sweetheart," Elena said, opening her arms. Nova climbed onto the couch between them, curling up against Elena's side. "Will you both stay with me tonight?" "The dreams are getting stronger." Elena and Jackson exchanged a look over Nova's head, a look full of unspoken promises and desires that would have to wait. But as they settled in to comfort the child who had become the center of their world, Elena realized that their feelings for each other were no longer separate from their love for Nova. They had become a family. It's unconventional and complicated, but real nonetheless. As Nova drifted back to sleep, her markings pulsing gently in the dim light, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that their peaceful life was about to be shattered. The child's dreams were becoming more vivid, more urgent, and Elena feared they might be more than simple nightmares outside. Something glinted in the starfield, too regular to be natural, too distant to be clearly visible. But it was there, and it was getting closer. The proximity alarms screamed through the research station at 0300 hours, jolting Elena from the first peaceful sleep she'd had in days. She rolled out of bed, immediately alert as her training kicked in. Down the hall, she could hear Nova crying. "Lena." Jackson's voice boomed over the intercom. "Get to the command center now." She found him hunched over the sensor displays, his face grim in the blue glow of the monitors. 3 ships had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Sleek, predatory vessels, unlike anything in the human databases. "How long until they reach us?" Elena asked, her scientific mind automatically calculating orbital mechanics, even as her heart raced with fear. 6 hours, maybe 7 if they're being cautious. Jackson's fingers flew over the controls, activating the station's defensive protocols. "Elena, these ships, ... they're scanning everything. It's like they're looking for something specific." Appeared in the doorway, her violet eyes wide with terror. Markings on her skin were blazing so brightly they cast shadows on the walls. "They found me," she whispered. "I thought I had more time." Elena knelt beside the trembling child. "Nova, who found you? What aren't you telling us?" For the first time since her arrival, Nova looked older than her apparent years. Sadness Elena had glimpsed in those first moments seemed to surface fully. "My name isn't just Nova," she said quietly. "It's Nova Stellaris. I'm the heir to the throne of Luminara Prime." Jackson's hand froze over the communication controls. "You're a princess?" Nova nodded miserably. "My father was killed in a coup. The rebels took control of our world, but some loyal guards helped me escape. They've been hunting me ever since." Elena felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. "The markings on your skin, they're not just decoration, are they? They're some kind of genetic identifier." "Royal bloodline markers," Nova confirmed. "I grow older, and my powers develop. They become more distinct. The rebels can track me through them now that I'm getting stronger." The main screen flickered to life, showing a transmission from the approaching ships. A figure appeared, humanoid but clearly alien, with pale skin similar to Nova's, but marked by cruel scars across his face and neck. "Attention, human research." "Station," the figure spoke in accented English. "We seek a fugitive who may have taken refuge among you. Surrender the child peacefully, and your facility will be spared." Jackson stepped into view of the camera. "This is Commander Reed. We're a scientific research station with no involvement in alien politics. You have no authority here." The alien's expression darkened. "The child is property of the new Luminaran government. We will retrieve her with or without your cooperation." Jackson cut the transmission and turned to Elena and Nova. "We have maybe 5 hours before they reach us. The station's defenses won't hold them long. Then we run," Elena said immediately. "The emergency shuttles won't get us far enough fast enough. Jackson finished. But there might be another way. He brought up a star chart on the secondary screen. There's a dead system about 4 hours away at maximum burn. Asteroid field thick enough to hide in, and close enough to the hyperspace relay that we might be able to send a distress signal to Earth. Nova shook her head. You don't understand. If you help me, they'll never stop hunting you. You sacrifice yourselves for me. Elena took Nova's hands, surprised by how warm they felt despite the child's obvious fear. Nova, listen to me. 3 weeks ago, Jox and I were just colleagues doing our jobs, but you've changed everything. You've become our daughter in every way that matters. Jackson nodded, his hand coming to rest on Nova's shoulder. Elena's right. We're a family now, and families protect each other. Nova's eyes filled with tears that sparkled like liquid starlight. But I'm not even human, ... Neither is family always about blood, Elena said softly, pulling Nova into a tight embrace. Sometimes it's about choice, and we choose you. The next. A few hours passed in frantic preparation. They loaded the fastest shuttle with supplies and emergency equipment while monitoring the approaching ships. As they worked, Elena found herself stealing glances at Jackson, remembering their interrupted moment from the night before. The crisis had pushed their budding relationship to the background, but the feelings were still there, stronger than ever. Elena, Jackson called from the shuttle's pilot seat. I need to tell you something before we launch. She moved to stand beside him, Nova secured in the passenger compartment behind them. What is it? Something happens to me out there? I need you too. No, ... Double quotes. He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers. Last night wasn't just about attraction or loneliness. I love you, Elena Torres. I love your brilliant mind and your compassionate heart, and the way you've opened your life to a scared alien child without question. Elena's throat tightened with emotion. Jox, nothing's going to happen to any of us. We're going to get through this together. He pulled her closer, his free hand cupping her face. Promise me that if I don't make it, she silenced him with a fierce kiss, pouring all her fear and love and determination into the contact. When they broke apart, her eyes were blazing with resolve. The only promise I'm making is that we all survive this. Nova needs us, and I need you. The pursuing ships had reached the outer sensor grid. It was time to go, as their shuttle launched. Into the star-filled void, Elena watched the research station, their home for the past 3 years, shrink behind them. Nova pressed against the viewport, her markings pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. I'm sorry, Nova whispered. I'm sorry for bringing danger to your lives. Elena wrapped an arm around the child's shoulders. Don't you dare apologize for surviving, Nova. Your father would be proud of how strong you've been. Behind them, the alien ships altered course, following their thermal trail. The chase had begun, and Elena knew that their lives would never be the same again. But as she looked at Nova's determined face and felt Jackson's steady presence beside her, she realized that maybe change wasn't always something to fear. Sometimes it was something to fight for. The asteroid field of the Kepler Dead Zone provided perfect cover, but it also made navigation treacherous. Jackson's hands gripped the shuttle controls as he maneuvered between floating mountains of rock and ice, each one potentially large enough to crush their small vessel. Contact bearing 27 Mark 8, Elena reported from the sensor station. They're definitely following our ion trail. In the rear compartment, Nova sat cross-legged on the floor, her markings now pulsing in. Complex patterns that seemed to respond to some internal rhythm. She'd been like this for the past hour, ever since they'd entered the asteroid field. Nova, Elena called softly. Sweetie, are you okay? The child's violet eyes opened, but they seemed to be looking through Elena rather than at her. Someone's coming, she said in a voice that carried harmonics no human throat could produce. Someone I haven't seen in so long. Before Elena could ask what she meant, her proximity sensors lit up with a new contact. But this one was moving to intercept the pursuing ships rather than coming after them. The newcomer was a single vessel, smaller than the rebel ships, but radiating an energy signature that made their instruments sing. As they watched on the main screen, it engaged the 3 pursuit ships with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. Who is that? Jackson asked, but Nova was already answering. Zeth, she breathed. And suddenly, she was just a little girl again, tears of joy streaming down her face. It's Zeth. The battle was brief, but decisive. 2 of the rebel ships were crippled, the third retreating into hyperspace. The mysterious newcomer then turned toward their hiding spot among the asteroids. Shuttle crew, this is Guardian Zeth of the Royal Luminaran Fleet. Princess, if you're receiving this, please respond. Nova practically threw herself at the communication controls. Zeth, I'm here. I'm safe. Lena and Jackson exchanged glances as they heard the relief in the alien voice. My princess, thank the stars. I've been searching for you for months. Are you well? Are your companions treating you with proper respect? They're not my companions, Nova said, looking back at Alina and Jackson with such love that Alina felt. Her heart squeezed. They're my family. An hour later, they were aboard Zeth's ship, a vessel that seemed to be grown from the same organic material as Nova's original escape pod. The being who greeted them was tall and elegant, with the same silvery skin as Nova, but bearing more elaborate markings that indicated high rank. Most striking were his eyes, ancient, wise, and filled with a warrior's hardness that spoke of terrible losses. Guardian Zeth, Nova ran to him, and the formidable alien's expression immediately softened as he knelt to embrace her. You've grown. So much, little star, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Your father would be proud. Alina watched the reunion with mixed feelings. She was happy that Nova had found someone from her past. But she couldn't shake the fear that this meant their time together was ending. Zeth rose and turned to face Lena and Jackson with a formal bow. I'm Zeth Valantaries, sworn protector of the royal bloodline. You have my eternal gratitude for sheltering the princess in her time of need. She's not just a princess to us, Alina said firmly. She's our daughter. Something flickered in Zeth's ancient eyes. Humans rarely understand the concept of chosen family among our people, but I see the bond between you. It is usual, but genuine. As they settled into the ship's central chamber, Zeth began to explain the situation on Luminara Prime. The coup had been orchestrated by a faction called the Iron Dawn, who believed that the old royal bloodlines were obsolete in a galaxy increasingly dominated by technology over natural abilities. They've been systematically hunting down anyone with royal markings, Zeth explained. Nova is the last true heir, but more than that, she's what we call a prime conduit. Her abilities will continue to grow until she can commune directly with the planetary consciousness itself. Is that what she was doing in the hydroponics lab? Alina asked, connecting with the plants, a pale shadow of her true potential. Zeth confirmed. Once she reaches maturity, she'll be able to heal entire ecosystems, communicate with all forms of life simultaneously, even influence the growth of new worlds. Jackson leaned forward. That kind of power, ... No wonder the rebels want her eliminated. Or controlled, Zeth said darkly. Are rumors that they've found a way to artificially transfer royal abilities? If they capture Nova alive, ... He didn't need to finish. Alina instinctively moved closer to Nova, her protective instincts fully engaged. But there is hope, Zeth continued. The outer colonies have remained loyal to the crown. If we can reach the fortress world of Andorian, we can rally the fleet and begin taking back our territory. No, Nova said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I won't run anymore. I won't hide while my people suffer under the Iron Dawn. Princess, you're not ready for. I'm ready enough, Nova interrupted, and her markings flared with determined light. Zeth, you taught me that a ruler's first duty is to their people. How can I claim the throne if I abandon that duty now? Lena felt a chill of foreboding. Nova, what are you saying? The child. No, Alina realized. The young woman, for Nova, suddenly seemed far older than her apparent years, looked at each of them in turn. I'm saying we go back. We take the fight to the Iron Dawn. Absolutely not, Jackson said immediately. You're barely 8 years old. I'm actually closer to 16 in your years, Nova said gently. Our people age differently, and with my powers growing stronger every day. She held up her hand, and Alina gasped as flowers began to bloom. From her palm, living, breathing organisms that shouldn't have been possible. Zeth nodded slowly. The princess speaks wisdom, though it pains me to agree. But she cannot face this trial alone. She won't be alone, Alina said without hesitation. We're going with her. Jackson stared at Alina. Do you realize what you're saying? This isn't just about protecting Nova anymore. This is war. Alina moved to stand beside Nova, her hand resting on the young woman's shoulder. 3 weeks ago, I was a xenobotanist whose biggest concern was getting accurate soil samples. Now I'm ready to follow an alien princess into battle to save her people. She looked directly into Jackson's eyes, because some things are worth fighting for. The intensity in her gaze, the fierce determination in her voice, made Jackson's resolve crumble. He'd fallen in love with Alina's compassion, but this warrior's fire, made him love her even more. He said with a wry smile, I always wanted to see more of the galaxy. As they began planning their return to Luminara Prime, Alina found herself alone with Jackson in the ship's small observation deck. The stars wheeled slowly past the transparent aluminum windows, and for a moment she could almost pretend they were back on the research station. Are you sure about this? Jackson asked, pulling her into his arms. Once we cross this line, there's no going back to our quiet life. Alina melted into his embrace, drawing strength from his solid presence. I've never been more sure of anything. Nova needs us. And ... She looked up into his green eyes. I can't imagine facing this without you. He kissed her then, deep and passionate. A kiss that spoke of love and desperation and the knowledge that they might not have many more moments. Like this, when they broke apart, Alina rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Jocks. When this is over, when Nova is safe on her throne, ... What happens to us? Was quiet for a long moment, his hand stroking her hair. I guess that depends on whether a former research station janitor and a xenobotanist have any place in a royal court. Alina smiled against his chest. We'll make a place. After all, we're family now. Outside, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself was blessing their unlikely bond. But Alina knew that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The Iron Dawn would not give up easily, and Nova's growing powers made her both invaluable and incredibly dangerous. Tomorrow they would begin the journey back to Luminara Prime. Tonight, Alina held tight to the man she loved and tried not to think about how many ways their story could end in tragedy. The throne world of Luminara Prime hung before them like a jewel of blue and silver, but Alina could see the scars even from orbit. Dark patches marked where cities once stood, and the orbital defense platforms that should have challenged their approach lay twisted and broken in space. My God, Alina whispered, her hand finding Nova's shoulder as the young princess stared at her ravaged homeworld. They've been busy, Zeth said grimly from the pilot station. Intelligence reports suggested extensive damage, but this... He shook his head. This is systematic destruction of everything beautiful our people ever built.
Ow. Nova's markings had
been growing brighter with each hour of their approach, and now they pulsed with an intensity that made Alina's eyes water. The princess was no longer the frightened child they'd found weeks ago. Her powers had been developing rapidly during their journey, and she now radiated an authority that was both magnificent and slightly terrifying. Take us down to the old palace grounds, Nova commanded, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in Alina's bones. It's time I reclaimed what was stolen. Jackson looked up from the weapons console where he'd been studying the tactical situation. Nova, the entire area is crawling with Iron Dawn forces. It's suicide. No, Nova said quietly, her violet eyes meeting his. It's justice. As they descended through the atmosphere, Alina marveled at what had once been. Even in ruin, she could see the organic architecture that characterized Luminaran cities, buildings that looked grown rather than constructed, streets that flowed like rivers. And everywhere the evidence of a civilization that lived in harmony with nature, now much of it lay in radioactive ash. There, Zeth pointed to a structure that still stood defiant among the ruins. The royal palace had been built around a living mountain, its spires and chambers carved from the stone but filled with growing things. Despite the devastation around it, the palace itself seemed untouched, as if even the rebels had been reluctant to destroy something so beautiful. The planetary consciousness protects it, Nova explained, seeing Elena's wondering expression. The palace is the heart of Luminara. Prime, the place where my ancestors first learned to commune with the world's spirit. It cannot be destroyed by technology alone. It landed in what had once been a magnificent garden, but was now a crater filled with twisted metal and dead vegetation. As they disembarked, Elena could feel something in the air, a presence that seemed to watch their every move. Stay close, Nova warned. The Iron Dawn may not be able to destroy the palace, but they've filled it with traps and guardians. The journey through the ruined corridors was like walking through a graveyard of dreams. Elena saw murals depicting the history of Nova's people, their first contact with the planetary consciousness. Their expansion to the stars, their golden age of harmony between technology and nature, all of it defaced now with the brutal efficiency of conquerors who destroyed not just for strategic advantage, but for the sheer joy of breaking beautiful things. Princess Zeth said suddenly, his hand moving to his weapon. Hey, we're not alone. The attack came without warning, Iron Dawn soldiers emerging from hidden alcoves, their weapons spitting energy that left smoking craters in the ancient stone. Jackson threw himself in front of Elena, his rifle barking return fire, while Zeth moved with fluid grace to protect Nova, but it was Nova who ended the battle. She simply raised her hand, and every weapon in the chamber died. The soldiers found themselves unable to move as vines erupted from cracks in the floor, wrapping around their legs and arms, not to harm them, but to hold them fast. Leave, Nova said, and her voice carried the authority of mountains and oceans. Tell your masters that the true heir has returned. The soldiers fled, their eyes wide with terror. Nova, Elena breathed. How did you the palace recognizes me? Nova said simply. In this place, I am what I was born to be. They reached the throne room as the sun was setting, its light streaming through crystal windows to paint rainbow patterns on the walls. The throne itself was not a chair, but a living tree, its branches forming a natural seat while its roots disappeared deep into the mountain's heart. Standing before it, waiting for them, was the scarred figure Elena recognized from the transmission days ago. General Korith of the Iron Dawn, leader of the rebellion, flanked by a dozen elite guards. Oh, he said, his voice like grinding stone. The lost princess returns to die in the place of her birth. How poetic. Nova stepped forward, unafraid despite being outnumbered 20-1. Hello, Uncle. Elena's blood went cold. Uncle. Oh yes, Korith smiled, the expression made hideous by his scars. Did our little princess not mention? Am her father's brother, once heir to this throne myself, until this whelp was born with the markings that should have been mine. Elena felt pieces clicking together in her mind, the intimate knowledge of royal protocols, the personal hatred that drove the rebellion. This wasn't just politics, this was family. You killed my father, Nova said, her voice steady despite the pain Elena could see in her eyes. You destroyed our people's cities. You turned brother against sister and child against parent. Why? Because I was tired of watching lesser beings inherit power they never earned, Korith snarled. Your father was weak, just as his father was weak. The old ways are dying, Nova. The galaxy belongs to those strong enough to take it. Strength. Nova mused, her markings beginning to pulse with dangerous light. Let me show you strength, Uncle. The throne room erupted into chaos. Korith's guards opened fire, but their weapons had no effect. The shots were absorbed by a barrier of pure light that surrounded Nova like a second skin. Elena watched in amazement as her adopted daughter, the child she'd cared for and comforted, revealed the true extent of her power. Nova gestured, and the mountain itself responded. Roots burst from the floor, wrapping around the rebel soldiers. Flowers bloomed from the walls, releasing spores that sent the guards into peaceful sleep. Even the air seemed to sing with her presence, but Korith had one last card to play. Elena saw the device in his hand too late, some kind of neural disruptor designed specifically to target Luminar nervous systems. If I cannot rule, he snarled, then no one will. As the weapon fired, its beams striking Nova center mass. The princess cried out and collapsed, her connection to the palace severed as she writhed in agony on the ancient stones. Elena didn't think, she simply moved. Throwing herself between Nova and Korith, as he raised the weapon for a killing shot. She felt the neural disruptor's energy tear through her human nervous system. The pain was indescribable, like lightning made solid, but she held position until Jackson's rifle